I'm pretty sure most of you are aware of the ESRB and PEGI. These are age rating systems. They're pretty well known in the video game industry as well. But there's a new one called the IGRS, and it's from my home country, Indonesia. And it made a huge mess. So I made this presentation. First of all, this video will mostly talk about comparisons, general purpose, the mess it made, and potential thoughts and ideas. Maybe. By the way, this video is mostly a discussion video, so if I'm either wrong or vague, feel free to comment down below. So, what is the IGRS? It stands for Indonesia Game Rating System. So, it's stuff like the SRB from the US and PGI from the EU, or PEGI. These are all video game age rating systems. Now, the general purpose is to provide information or a guide to parents or consumers before they make a purchase of a game or an app. This is according to the ESRB. So imagine this. Imagine all of this, but it's Indonesian. Now, as a simple comparison, the IGRS, to me anyway, seems very similar to PEGI. Starts from 3 to 7, and then it continues to 13, 15, but it also caps or maxes out at around 18 plus. So they don't have like an in-between like in the ESRB with 17 plus. So that's the simplest comparison I could do. But wait, what is this? Who is this? Why is it above 18 plus? Is this Indonesia's version of 21 plus? Well, this RC rating stands for Refuse Clarification. Games with this age rating should, or at least have, these three elements, such as gooning material, NSFW stuff, or adult explicit content. Next is actual, real online gambling. If it's in the game, it gets hit with this RC rating. Then, extreme violence. So if a game has either one of these, or even all three of these, it'll get hit with this red text of doom, not fit for distribution. This means that the game is not fit to be released or distributed in this country. They might get delisted from Steam's Indonesia storefront. Now, you might be wondering, maybe it's not a huge deal, maybe only like those extreme or hardcore games are affected by it. This many. And there's a lot more actually, but this is what my friend, thanks to Fandek, shout out to him, for making this list. He went out of his way to list all of these games that got hit with this not fit for distribution rating, so shout out to him. Now, I can't really mention all of the games here, so I'm just going to mention the ones that really caught my attention. Games like Yakuza Like a Dragon, the entire series, even Judgment games. Next, we have a bunch of Atlas games like Persona 5, Persona 4, Shin Megami Tensei 5. I think Shin Megami Tensei 3 was also hit by it, and also Meta 4. Next, we have Expedition 33. Then we also have Dispatch, Cyberpunk, and of course, Grand Theft Auto 5. Got hit with the not for distribution text of Doom. There's also some other games that I'd like to mention. Games like Where Winds Meet, Blue Archive, Ready or Not, and Ghost of Tsushima. Red text of Doom! Now, as you can see here, the not fit for distribution part does mention it may violate national law, but they're not pretty clear of it. It's pretty vague. The RC rating is already a huge deal because it means these games might not be available to purchase anymore in Indonesia. But there's also another issue that the IGRS made. Games getting the wrong age rating. Games such as Farming Simulator is 18 plus for some reason for online interaction. But Call of Duty is 3 plus with the same reason, online interaction. So what is going on here? Now, are all these age ratings permanent? Are we cooked? Well, about that, not really. We're not completely cooked just yet. Because as of yesterday, PEGI was back just for yesterday, because I just checked Steam today and they are telling us that they're still going to implement IGRS, but we don't know when they're going to fully implement this. I am worried about that. So the ministry did make a statement back in April 5th regarding this entire Steam age rating issue. And here's the statement right here. To completely summarize it, to completely put this in a nutshell, I'm going to read out a tweet because it's pretty funny, so I'm just going to mention it. It's by Anon54, and it basically just says corporate talk, corporate talk, corporate talk, corporate talk. The system is actually not ready yet. Corporate talk, corporate talk. Actually, this is Steam's fault for following our law. Corporate talk, corporate talk. Trust me, bro. I know this is probably made in more of a comedic sense, but not completely wrong. We'll talk about that later. Now, Steam does have their right to self-assess these age rating. According to Article 6 in the IGRS, they did mention that publishers are allowed to self-assess this age rating, but through government official websites. Now, I think that's just adding more hassle or adding more friction to game devs. So according to the founder of Toge Productions, Chris Anthony, he mentioned that the white one, which is IGRS, and the dark one, which is Steam's. Now specifically for the IGRS one, a lot of the points are too generalized and grouped together. And also there's an issue regarding point number 10. Now, to talk about this form even more, this is the one from IGRS. So, looking at this, it seems like yes, this is very simplified. Does the content in the game depict elements of smoking, electronic cigarettes, alcoholic beverages, narcotics, and other addictive substance? Now, the only way you could answer this is either yes, directly depicted, yes, depicted indirectly, and no. Personally, I think smoking and electronic cigarettes should be in a different category completely than this one, or in a completely different question, because comparing smoking and electronic cigarettes to alcohol, illegal drugs is completely different in my opinion. This is like them saying that smoking and vaping is the same as addictive substances or as bad as those, when in Indonesia a lot of people do smoke and vape. Now, point number 4 says, does the game contain or depict elements of violence? Yes, intense violence. Yes, moderate violence. Yes, mild violence. Or just no. Now, I don't really know what they mean by intense violence, moderate violence, or even mild violence. They kind of need to be a bit specific on what this means, or it's just not really a clear idea on what is intense violence or moderate violence. The moderate one is kind of unclear for me. Maybe I'm stupid, I don't know. But here is point number 10, the problem one. Does the content of the game depict elements of not safe for work, gooner material, gooning content, explicit adult content? No, yes. No, yes. Let that sink in. Now, why is this a huge deal? Or why is this a bit of a issue, you could say? Because this is the only question where the no and yes or no are switched. Because if we go back here, all of them follows a yes first and then no, but this one follows a no first and then yes. So you could accidentally say yes, that your game contains this, when you're supposed to like fill out no. So this is the only one that feels a bit weird. Next, we have Steam's age rating form. First, we have fantasy and mild violence, unrealistic blood color, cartoon violence or fantasy violence, fight without gore or blood, display of weapons, bones, derogatory language, anguish. So there's a different category for itself. Comparing to this one, where it puts violence in one question, this one actually puts violence in 2 separate questions. Mild fantasy violence, and then there's realistic violence. So the realistic one has something like realistic blood, violent acts, killing, violence against minorities or vulnerable groups. So they are more specific on these questions, it seems. And there's even high impact violence or cruelty. If we go back here in the IGRS form, it's pretty simplified. Now, the next one is still from Steam's age rating form, explicit sexual content. Does the game contain sexual content that is explicit or graphic and is intended for adults only? Or the other one, clear depiction of genitalia. Now, back to the IGRS's form. It's only a simple yes or no. Very simplified. Legal drugs. Now here it is. Legal drugs. It mentions stuff like, does it have alcohol or tobacco? Where the consumption of it is limited but not directly depicted on screen. Drugs or even medical usage of illegal drugs. If I'm not wrong, in some countries you can use some drugs apparently as a pain relief. Now here's the other one that separates it from the IGRS's form, and that is a specific part of the form that says illegal drugs. So does the game mentions it, but it's not completely depicted on screen. So they only mention it through dialogue or text, or they do describe it even more, but still not directly depicted on screen, or they do use it, but in a context where it may not be necessary for the game. And the last one, which might be a bit problematic, is favorable speech about illicit drug use. It's basically, yes, this is the one that is a bit problematic. If your game does have it, it's basically saying that you push the idea of using these illicit drugs. Now, going back to the IGRS's rating, the first form you have to fill out is, does it have smoking electronic cigarettes, alcoholic beverages, narcotics? Now, the weird part is that they're being put in the same category, while Steam's form puts it in a separate category. So stuff like alcohol and tobacco are put in the illegal drug section because, let's be honest, because here, even in Indonesia, a lot of people still vape and smoke, while stuff like narcotics or illegal drugs are put in illegal drugs. So it's pretty overly generalized in point number 1 here, because it's kind of putting smoking and vaping in the same level as using these illicit drugs. And I'm gonna keep mentioning this all the time. It's kind of ironic because most of Indonesians do smoke. I don't smoke, but I do know my neighbor smokes, and a lot of my classmates do smoke, or vape at least. My brother smokes, so I do know a lot of people that smokes here. Now, Steam did make their own statement regarding the IGRS ratings, and apparently it's a bug. Technical bug and miscommunication, which is a bit odd for Steam, I guess. And they did apologize for the confusion it made. No, Ministry of Communication and Digital Affairs, they did not specifically apologize to just you. It seems like they're also apologizing to the consumers themselves. So Steam being Steam and caring about their consumers. Even though that Valve has been in communication for 2 years, it seems like there's still a technical bug and miscommunication. So I think this bug, it might go both ways. It goes both ways to Steam. Maybe it also goes to IGRS. Now for that part, we can only wait for more information. But yes, it feels a bit weird if it's actually completely Steam's fault. I'm not trying to play a default game as well here, but I think the ministry should also, again, fix their own system and prevent any technical bugs. Now it's clear that the system isn't perfect, it's still broken, because now it's the part where I talk about my thoughts and opinions on it. First of all, I would like to mention the UAE, specifically because they have a 21 plus age rating. So unlike the IGRS, where it caps at 18 and you have the RC rating of doom, the UAE has a 21 plus rating, which according to Gulf News, here for the UAE, 18 plus contains mild violence, partial nudity, and references to alcohol consumption, while 21 plus has more explicit content, profanity, and more sexual references. So I think if the IGRS still wants to be a bit stricter with their age rating, they should either replace the RC rating with this 21 plus rating, in my opinion anyways. But another thought and opinion I have is Steam, or Indonesia Steam, is completely fine with relying on PEGI, because as a guide, as a piece of information, it's completely enough. I would like to mention here the devices that most people use to play games. A majority of them are mobile gamers. The mobile gaming market is really dominating Indonesia, mostly because of accessibility, and everyone has a phone nowadays. It's already a necessity, followed by people who have PCs or laptops that are strong enough to play games, and then at the very bottom we have console gamers. Now, what does this have to do with age rating systems? Well, the market difference actually. So the mobile gaming market, comparing to the PC gaming market, mobile gaming markets tend to have more free-to-play games. So yes, these games are way easier to access and play by kids because it's free. It's completely free. They can just download it and play it. Now for PC and even console gaming, it's a bit more limited. While yes, they do have free games, but a vast majority of the popular ones are the paid ones. And this pay-to-play wall to play video games is actually an age restriction itself. It also restricts kids from playing any game they want on Steam. Because here in Indonesia specifically, if you want to buy games on Steam, you can either get a Steam gift card, or you could get a Visa or MasterCard, or use a e-wallet service like Dana. Now, I really doubt a kid would have enough money to buy Cyberpunk at full price, or even Grand Theft Auto at full price, because again, they need a good PC to run it, and they also need to get money for it. Now, these two limitations also rely on the parents. If the parents are like, why do you want a laptop? Why do you want a computer? Or why do you need this amount of money? It may prevent kids from playing adult games or more mature games, you could say. Also, the weird thing is sometimes when people relate adult games with mature games, the only thing they think of is gooder games, when it's not entirely true, actually. Mature games can have more of, again, a mature message or storytelling that maybe most kids wouldn't really understand because their brains haven't developed enough. So in a sense, what I'm trying to say is they should not treat PC gaming the same as mobile gaming because it's a whole complete different market. Even console gaming is completely different to mobile gaming because of those restrictions I didn't mention. A lot of these restrictions are back to financial issues, so not everyone can afford a PC or even a console, but almost everyone here has a phone. Majority of kids, matter of fact, play games on their phone because, as I had mentioned, that restriction. But here's the thing. Kids grow up. But you expect that kids to grow up and they immediately forget about all the fun stuff they did and just immediately go full on productive and not think about anything fun anymore? No. They grow up, they get a job, and they want to spend their money on stuff they like. They want to spend their money on a console or a PC, but then only to realize the gaming market here is broken. Wouldn't that be very depressing? It'll be very depressing for me as well because I don't have a job yet. I'm still in college. The other thing I'd like to say is that I am not really in the idea of IGRS, mostly because of censorship. So I really don't like censorship because if a game actually doesn't fall into the RC rating but they just don't like the message of the game or they specifically have some weird beef with the game, they could possibly give the game an RC rating even though it doesn't meet those requirements. So my biggest worry comes from this. But now what I do agree from IGRS, and there's only one thing, and it comes down to hardcore video games, extreme video games. And when I'm talking about hardcore games, I'm specifically talking about games that has extreme violence, gooning material, you could say, NSFW, and actual online betting. These games, I would feel like, I guess it's kind of fair for them to get the RC rating, but they should only give the RC rating for these extreme, actually extreme hardcore games. And I'm telling you, there's a lot of hardcore games out there, and I hope that if they do implement the RC rating, if they implement the entire IGRS rating system, they do use the RC rating sparingly and fair. I really don't want to see a game that I like getting this RC rating, knowing that it doesn't have these 3 elements in the game, but it may have a message or story that they might not like. That wraps up the presentation. I made it just so I could save time on motion graphics, because I want to make this video as quick as possible before things change a lot. So to summarize this entire thing, I'm not really down with the idea of IGRS. I think PGI is enough, and I'm very worried that this might get misused as a censorship tool just so they could get rid of stuff they don't like, even though it doesn't have the necessary elements that RC-rated games should have, or should at least contain. Now, I'm pretty sure someone mentioned, I kind of forgot, I didn't really include it in the presentation, but I did read it, is that this is one of those situations where the government or the ministry should definitely work together with the gaming industry community is a huge need, because the gaming industry is actually pretty vast. There's a lot of niches out there that exist, so having actual experts helping them out to make an actual functioning system that is fair and reasonable is very necessary in this case. Another thing is, you might notice that my voice is a bit weird because my nose is a bit clogged, so if I sound a bit weird or talk a bit weird, I'm a little sick. Thank you guys for watching this video. If I am either wrong or unclear or vague, feel free to comment down below. Let us start a discussion down in the comments section. Bye-bye.